Now, to help us break down some of these stories and get a look at the markets, to bring in Alex Coffey, senior equity contributor here on the network. Alex, more all-time highs, more optimism for equities. It seems like all boats are rising in this tide of asset grab for assets across the board, whether it's gold, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's equities at this point. Give me your take.
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the movement outside of stocks, it does still, I think, indicate a little bit of uneasiness, maybe with the extent of the equity rally, especially given the fact that earnings estimates, at least after last quarter, largely went down as guidance was sort of adjusted lower and disappointing. That said, you look at the equity market, Tom, and you look at where this week sits with sort of a quiet one on the calendar with limited earnings, limited data that's even more limited because of the government shutdown. I think many kind of came into this week expecting a quiet week, one that was sort of sitting around and waiting for either an update on the shutdown or something else to be a catalyst. And it was anything but that yesterday when you had that giant deal announced between AMD and OpenAI. But the big takeaway for me in that, outside of course, hey, that's a huge potential win for AMD and all the key kind of dynamics for the companies and parties involved, was that you didn't see Broadcom rally on that news, that you didn't see NVIDIA rally on that news. You did see KLAC, you did see TSM, ASML, the ones that actually make some of these different products, perform nicely, but you didn't see the other designers perform nicely. And this is now the second kind of big news item we've gotten in this space in the last month and a half, 2 months, that sent sort of shockwaves across the industry that were net negative for players that weren't involved in the story. Broadcom and Microsoft was another example of this, as kind of headlines around them partnering up to design a chip. You saw NVIDIA lower on that. So it's no longer the rising tide lifts all boats. It's a bit of a market share grab at the moment, and it's probably indicative that we're a little bit later in at least the designers stage of this market rally. But there's still obviously a ton of optimism surrounding these headlines, and if you're the one that's the beneficiary of it, it's still a really nice place to be.
Yeah, and I've been saying that, Alex. I got a bunch of questions at the market drive this weekend about the bubble in AI. And I'm like, well, I traded through the 99 to 2000 bubble for equities and big tech during the dot-com bubble. But until we start to see a pullback in investments into the AI infrastructure build-out, there's going to be no bubble. There's going to be a bubble eventually, maybe in NVIDIA, maybe in Broadcom,
right,
maybe in OpenAI. But right now, I don't know if we're in the third, fourth, fifth inning. But until you see Meta Platforms, Microsoft, OpenAI, NVIDIA start to pull back on their investments, that's when you're going to be probably scratching your head going, okay, well, if they're starting to pull back on investments instead of ramping up investments, that might signal when that happens. But so far, Alex, as you mentioned, we haven't seen a pullback in investments, right?
We haven't, and this is where things get really nuanced, right? Because I think you could look at the NVIDIA investment and say, wow, NVIDIA's got to shell up this kind of cash. They're the one that's supposed to be benefiting from this kind of cash spend, and that could have been a bit alarming. But then it was like in the same week or within a few days, you had that same story about all the OpenAI employees that sold stock at that new valuation to private parties like the SoftBanks of the world, et cetera. So yeah, it's definitely, I would argue, in some ways, maybe decelerating, but it's definitely not, slowed down to a halt by any stretch.
Yeah, and AMD last night after the close, after that announcement, that partnership with OpenAI and the investments that they're making there, Jefferies upgraded the stock, put a price target to 300 from 170. I mean, that's just one of the price target hikes that we've seen.
Right.
So this is going to be a benefit to AMD. They're a legitimate competitor now with NVIDIA. Remember, NVIDIA announced a $100 billion investment into OpenAI. OpenAI announces major investment into AMD. The circle continues. That doesn't mean there's going to be a loser in that type of scenario. It means that maybe it's just broadening out, right?
Well, and if you're AMD, and I think this was the big point of Lisa Su, it could be interpreted both ways, that this was a non-exclusive deal. That obviously means OpenAI is still free to do business with other companies. But to me, this was like, if you needed a stamp of approval from someone in this space, OpenAI was the place to go. AMD has now been so much more legitimized in terms of their product and where it stands in the marketplace. So as long as they can keep up with demand, they may see a lot more calls now about their product. But you mentioned Jefferies, the price target at 300. They kind of agree. They kind of say that this partnership's a strong validation of the AI roadmap for AMD. But you mentioned several price target hikes. Morgan Stanley, you got Joseph Moore over there, 246 from 168. Piper Sandler, 240 from 190. Wells Fargo's Aaron Rakers, 275 from 185. You're basically saying it materially is increasing its estimates after this announcement. Evercore ISI, 240 from 188, keeping the outperform. A lot of the same kind of sentiment as Wells Fargo and Jefferies, talking about how this changes the roadmap going forward. Whenever a stock makes a move like it did yesterday, it may take a second for the volatility to slow down. Mm-hmm. But if you're an analyst, you have to reset after that because it's materially different.
It is material different, and that equates to the price target hikes that we're seeing, the upgrades out of Jefferies. Let's pivot over here to one of the big winners here. AMD is up nearly 4%, but also up nearly 4%. And IBM, they have their Tech Exchange 2025 going on right now. They announced that partnership with Anthropic on software development and Claude integration into some of their software. This is pretty big news for IBM as it's hitting all-time highs.
Yeah, and this is a company that I think has really navigated the last couple of years very, very nicely, as it's a company that I think has this stigma of legacy and kind of maybe outdated in some ways, and it's certainly bucked that the last couple of years. These kind of partnerships are important. Anthropic is maybe a lesser discussed name in this space, but quietly also one of the bigger privately held companies. So it's a major player in AI. It's probably a pretty nice breakthrough for both of these companies to have this type of partnership announced. You could argue that Anthropic is the top rival to OpenAI in terms of where it is. I think some might say X, others...
Big investment from Amazon into Anthropic also.
Exactly.
I mean, these AI agents, though, and what they're building out, Claude for Anthropic, I mean, there's so much competition. CRM's got their own, ChatGPT, Grok out of XAI. I mean, is there going to be a winner in this space, or is there enough room for all these agentic AI models that they're building out?
Well, there is a tipping point, right, or like a point where this technology really takes off. And yeah, it seems like it's gotten a lot better, and it has recently. But if one of these companies makes a breakthrough before the other, I mean, it could kind of snowball into even further breakthroughs, right? As the technology itself can help with the process. So I don't want to say that it's going to be winner take all. I think we're probably headed towards a situation where it's somewhat commoditized in the future, where the amount of power you need to power this is not the direction that we're going right now with these crazy build outs. Probably the biggest risk is overcapacity.
Yeah.
But if you're a company that's in this race, you can't risk falling behind.
Right.
Because to your point, there could always, I'm never going to know for sure what it's going to play out as. There could be a situation where there is one winner in this technology. They get so far ahead that they're able to truly change the world. Yeah. And world-changing technology doesn't come around all that often. Yeah. Who knows what the windfall could be? So a long way of saying too early to tell. But the risk of there only being one winner makes it so that these companies have to be all in all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of the investment and why OpenAI is just pushing, because you don't want to become that Bing to Google. You don't want to become, the enterprise software that competes against Microsoft in that space. So there are big major winners in major tech. Does that come to fruition here, or is there enough capacity out there that you're going to need multiple AI agents out there and AI infrastructure build out? I think that's a key point. Tesla, let's move on there. The stock's actually down today. They kind of hinted on Sunday in a 9-second X post that they're going to have a new model, a lower price model. And that's what we've been waiting for, Alex. I think that's been part of the problem, the theme with EV. You've seen the Chinese EV makers. They're innovating. They're releasing new models all the time. We haven't had a release since the Model 3, Model Y. That was years ago. There's supposed to be some update according to Reuters today.
Yeah, a couple things on this. I mean, one is I think they're serving different markets. So I think you can't discount, what the consumer looks like in China or even Europe compared to what it does here. But the timing is not suspect, given the fact that you just had that tax, credit expiration. If they want to capitalize on the market that is there, an affordable vehicle needs to be launched. And you think about Tesla and its plan all along. Its plan all along was always to keep scaling this out. And you achieve scale from affordability and efficiency in production. Well, they've really achieved efficiency in production relative to their peers. They've really achieved the ability to kind of support their ongoing investments through their core business as a profitable company. And they've mostly achieved scale. But if they really want to achieve, major worldwide scale, they got to bring something cheaper to market. They're just a little bit, too high of a price point, especially when compared to a company like BYD.
Yep, another winner today. On the flip side of the losses that we're seeing in Tesla,
it's small losses.
Yeah,
Tesla,
but Tesla still had a big run up. Maybe a lot of that was built in. Is ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, nearing a $2 billion investment in Polymarket. Hey, this is all the rage right now. Prediction markets creating partnerships within this space, investments within this space, whether it's Kalshi, whether it's Polymarket, and some of the others. This seems to be the next step. Then you don't want to fall behind in this market either, right?
Yeah, when you think about Intercontinental Exchange or some of these other exchange players, oftentimes investing in existing good technology is easier than creating it yourself, especially when there's brand power behind it. But, I look at where this space appears to be going, and, this is going to shake up sports playing and betting. This is going to do a lot of things where on-exchange, penny-wide markets are far more liquid than, 10-cent wide markets when you're picking sides on a DraftKings or a FanDuel or a legacy player. So this is a play from an exchange seeing opportunity. And it's not often that you hear about a company in discussions for making a big investment and then the stock rallies on it. So it goes to show that the marketplace really, really respects the value of prediction market and where that's going.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point, is the fact that you don't want to be left behind in this either. If we get some sort of tokenization where you're going to be buying and selling stocks with tokens as opposed to cash, these exchanges have to be prepared for that. In prediction markets, we saw it when, just a week ago when they were putting out betting lines on NFL games. They had tighter markets on them. The flows.
Liquidity is not quite there yet, but you get names like, ICE and others behind it.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where, people are willing to give that a try. It hits a tipping point and a kind of an escape velocity where it really can take over. I think every point you make is the right one. I don't know how fast this transition is, but it's certainly headed that way.
Yeah, and think about, watch stocks like CME, SIBO, and some of the other ones if they come out with deals now, because it just creates that furor out there from companies like, you don't want to get left behind. Maybe we need to start making deals, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of conversations.
Well, and think about the FanDuels and the DraftKings of the world. I mean, they're either going to have to pivot and change, or they're going to have to find some of these companies to partner with as well.
Yeah, a lot of volatility in that space. Also, good point there, Alex. All right, that's Alex Coffey, senior equity contributor here, helping us break down markets for the day.